Was Paul anti-Jewish? Philippians 3, some people interpret to mean so, because Paul describes his resume: circumcised on the eighth day, of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, in regard to the law, a Pharisee, as for zeal, persecuting the church, as for righteousness based on the law, faultless. But whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. And people say that indicates that Paul disliked Judaism. He had completely abandoned Judaism. I think that's a misreading of what Paul writes in Philippians and a misunderstanding of Paul overall. Because Paul's project in the epistles is not per se to say that Judaism is gone, but to say that Judaism has found its fulfillment in Christ. So any reading of Paul that's like rejection of Judaism is simply untrue. Sometimes we think of the Pharisees as being the people that like dictate how Judaism was. Like they are archetypal Judaism. But as we've done a little bit more scholarly studies through Paul, most of the literature is indicating, especially what's called the new perspective on Paul from N.T. Wright and others, have indicated that Paul did not think that he was breaking from Judaism, as in he was separating himself from Judaism, but rather that he was finding the fulfillment of Judaism. The monotheistic God was now manifest in the person of Jesus Christ. So we would do well to take that and not speak of like, oh, Judaism is gone, but maybe legalism is gone, but legalism didn't even need to per se define what was right, what was true of Old Testament Judaism. So the Pharisees may have been like a pretty dominant sect within Judaism, but that doesn't mean that they were the only people who determined what Judaism was. There might and there should have been people who cared about the deeper principles of following God than just like the legalistic things that we associate stereotypically with the Pharisees. For example, there's that one passage, I forgot exactly where it is, in the Gospels where a teacher of the law asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus says, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, that makes sense because it says sacrifice and offerings you haven't desired, but you've desired for us to love you. And so those sorts of people, those Pharisees, understood what the Jewish religion was about. So I don't think that we want to think of Christianity as a rejection of Judaism, but really a fulfillment of Judaism. I think that's what Paul really wants us to think about.